ladies and gentlemen, Keri Norley is about to come on and blow your mind in terms of wealth activation, wealth creation, and we are going to dive in deep, whether you're a man or a woman. So definitely stay tuned. And I'm talking to you because you're becoming your greatest possible self. So thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to invest your time and your energy and ultimately your money, right? You could be doing other things and you're here with us to grow. So thank you for choosing to be here with us in this interview with Keri and all of our interviews and all these great episodes, because we are diving in deep. It's an epic 12-hour live stream. So make sure you catch them live when they happen, and also the YouTubes and the podcasts. Check out the blog posts and the show notes, all that great stuff, because you'll get even more. Okay. Next up is going to be the iTunes review of the week. Let's see who it's by this week. I think it is by, yeah, that's right, CJ Hokama, who says, "Feed the burn. Chris's energy, enthusiasm, and zeal for his work is truly unmatched. He brings the absolute best in his guests, us, the listeners, as well as himself when it matters the most in life, the present moment. This podcast is not just hoorahs and chest-pounding moments either. Chris and his guests deliver breakthrough tools and applicable life exercises in order for his audience to make being the greatest versions of themselves possible." CJ Hokama, thank you so much for that review. And if you want to get a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-hour live stream, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Greatest Possible Self on the Apple Podcast Store. Give us a review. Let us know what you love and what you want to see more of, and we'll keep making this show even more awesome for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to introduce Keri in just a second here. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes. This is going to be a powerful interview for you if you're ready to up-level your revenue, your wealth, your riches, your money, your income, all of it. And we're going to be diving into human beings, masculine and feminine energy. So definitely stick around all the way through to the end, because one of these ideas that Keri shares with you has the ability to transform and change everything for you. Let's introduce her, and then we'll bring her on the screen. Keri Norley is the Wealth Alchemist. She is an international wealth and soul alignment coach, mentor, speaker, and author of the book, How to Use Feng Shui to Create Business Abundance. She plays in the quantum realms to help you release the BS stories that are keeping you stuck. If you are ready to dive deeper into your spiritual, energetic, emotional, mental, and physical blocks around creating the wealth you truly desire, this is where Keri loves to play. And we're going to be playing all day long in this epic interview. Keri, let's rock the house. You are live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thank you so much for being here. I super appreciate you. You're just a powerhouse. My gosh.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to dive right into the theme of today, which is, Keri, holiday magic. And we want to know, what does that mean for you? What does holiday magic mean for you, Keri?
Oh, what does holiday magic mean for me? Well, I think for me, at any time of the year, magic is all around. I mean, I'll go to alchemy, right? Creating something from nothing, creating goodness out of anything. And I know if we talk about holiday magic, right? Like holidays can bring up a ton of crap. Am I allowed to say those things?
Yes, you're allowed to swear. Yes.
Yes. Right? It can bring up a lot of shit for people when we have to go and see our families. And I know for myself, I just even Thanksgiving, when I was visiting my mom, stuff comes up. And like, I think the magic in it is actually being able to reflect back at ourselves and be able to grow and develop from it versus turning it into wars and crappiness in the family. Because we can create so much magic in the reflections that we see in our families of the places where we don't necessarily like to see things, right? But if we turn it around and look at it and like, how is that a reflection of myself? That's magic. I mean, there is so much growth to be had in that magic.
Wow. And what an amazing opportunity to practice being human, to practice forgiveness, to practice grace, to practice love, right? Because I think a lot of times it's easy to be successful and happy and like full of life when things are going well. And what about when things are other than we want them, other than how we would prefer the circumstances to be? How do we respond in that form? And I think, that's a really great transition into alchemy, because alchemy is you're given whatever you're given. Life's going to throw you ingredients, and how do you transmute those into magic, into creating wealth, into creating the life of your dreams? And I know you help your clients with that, Keri. So tell us a little bit more about how you do that, or specifically what you do as a wealth alchemist.
So a lot of it is actually that, right? Like, alchemy comes from turning something into, from nothing into something, right? And ultimately we are all shining lights and beings. It's not that we're nothing, but so often we've like masked and we've buried and we've had so much conditioning from when we were young, and we still play it out, right? Like we still loop the same stories from when we were 1, 2, 3 years old, when it was like, I mean, I look at some of my clients, I'm like, it could have been because you didn't get fed at the moment that you wanted to be fed.
Wow.
And now you're feeling like I'm going to be deprived for the rest of my life. And so like, there's so many looping patterns that come from, you know, and so when we clear those out, when we can look at the truth of any situation, and we look at the reflection to ourselves, right? And we take full self-responsibility. And I think it's a really big thing, full self-responsibility. Because I've been talking about self-responsibility for about over a decade, well and truly. And I can tell you that in my own journey of self-responsibility, right? Like it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay. And the times that I've thought that I'm like, I'm totally responsible, I'm like, actually the finger is pointing somewhere else, right? And so in that, it's like, even as I said with the family, like, it's like looking at like, wow, I totally see, like I can go back home and see my mom and the way she plays patterns out now. And I'm like, oh my God, I do that. I hate watching you do that, but I've done that. So owning that in myself and going, how do I want to shift and change that? How do I want to show up instead? Right? That is alchemy, because we're actually changing our patterns and our behaviors. And not only that, we're changing that generationally, right? And now just looking at that alone, because I think mindset, I've been doing mindset work and NLP and all sorts of stuff for over a decade. And I think it comes to, and that's why like in the intro, it says mindset, energy, emotional, all of it, right? Because like mindset comes from one level, like it's one of our bodies, one of our experiences of life. Right. Our physical body is one experience of life, right? And so when we start to layer it in and look at all the different levels of our lives, with the emotional, the energetic, and the spiritual realm as well, and we start to shift things, and that's when we start to look at the quantums, right? We start to shift things on a different level. Then things, it's like mentally, it's like we only have a certain amount of willpower. Eventually, right? Eventually our mind is going to be like, well, whatever. We've all done it. We've all been there. So I'm going to go do the thing. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to drink that. I'm not going to whatever. I know I have. That's what you know. We've all done it. And there's only a certain amount of willpower that we all have. But when we start to shift things on a quantum level, on a spiritual level, on all the bodies level, and we look at the entire system, that's when we can start to see completely massive alchemy results. And when I see for my clients, when we start to play in this, it's like, you know, we'll get on and there'll be, you know, an hour later, I'll get a thing, Keri, I had the sales call. And I, you know, normally there's a little bit, sometimes, you know, sales processes take a while, and that's what it is, right? And some of my clients, they're doing big sales processes, so they take a while. And she's like, oh my God, they just signed up right then and there with handing me all. I was like, I don't understand how that happened. And she's like, that never happens. I'm like, alchemy, magic. When you shift all the stuff that's like lingering, and I look at it kind of like if you're in a snow globe, right? Yeah. And if we imagine that we're in the snow globe, and the snow globe, those glass boundaries are our energetic field, and we've got like black spots in that globe, so you can't fully see out, and the energy is like messy and mucky. Well, when that's in our field, then we're going to have messy, mucky transmissions between the people that we're speaking with, between the people we're calling in, between the money that we want to come in with, whatever. And when we clear those away, it's like anything, like we see clearly, here it comes. It has a capacity to meet you because you've actually cleared the space for it to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And all those different aspects, there could be the muck in those aspects of mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. There could be gunk in any of those areas.
All of them.
Yeah, in all of them. So I think that's something I really want to dive into in the conversation more. And before we go there, though, I want to hear about your journey. And I know our audience wants to get connected with you, hear about your evolution into becoming a wealth alchemist yourself.
Ooh,
yes.
So like, how long is a piece of string? The long and the short of it really is, I have been, well, I grew up in a very successful, very wealthy family. And for a long time, I put that to the side. And I was like, it made me different. And it's in this last little while that I've fully owned into it, because of this space, because of where I've come from, the energetic field that I bring with me is like, well, it's that of wealth and alchemy. Like that's what I grew up in, wealth and success. And I see so many people, and then I started doing all this, like, but what's fascinating about it is like, when you grow up in it, you don't realize. It's like, if you grew up poor, you grew up being abused, you grew up in any of it, you don't realize it's wrong or bad or good or anything. It's just life, right? And so it took me leaving that life, choosing to move to Australia. My random accent, I'm originally from Chicago, but I've lived in Australia for 15 years, Sydney, and now I'm in Denver for about 3 years. And it took me leaving the life to realize how much I had. And to also then consciously unpack who I am, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. And so to consciously, now people always look at me like, Keri, you are an amazing manifester. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I am. I don't know how I do it. What would happen if I actually consciously learned how I do what I do? Yes. Right? And so about 14 years ago, or 12 years ago, I started on this like massive mission to be like, I started reading everything I could. This was before The Secret, before, right? Like, let's date that, right? Before all of that. And I was like, what is it that I do? And started to break down the laws of attraction and all these things, laws of the universe. And it became my like mission on the planet to figure this out and to teach others the same. And the wealth alchemy piece comes in from, it's like, I'm so, really, I just got so sick of seeing people stuck in this and making money bad and making rich people bad and making success and wealth bad. And I'm like, I'm like, I've had enough of hearing it and not saying anything. And I was literally like, oh, for fuck's sake, people. None of it is bad.
Wow.
None of it is bad. All of it is amazing. And there's so much that can be done with it. And when we truly step into our power, the ability to change the world. Like, I've watched my grandparents my whole life. My grandmother, one woman, she was one of the first 4 women to ever graduate from University of Chicago Business School, and which is still one of the most prestigious business schools in the world. And from there, like, her ability to be a woman in this world and change the world, the amount of programs, the millions of people that have lives, kids' lives have changed, human beings' lives that have changed because of her initiatives. I know how important it is for one person to choose to make a difference in this world. Wow. I know how important it is for us to increase our wealth because she couldn't have done that without the wealth to back her. Yeah. Right? Or without like her not having to worry about, like, that was her life, was making a difference in the world. So I know in every cell of my being how important it is that we all step into this, because the more of us that are doing our purpose work, the more of us that are making money and creating wealth on this planet, the more that we can change the planet. I have the chills. More that we can change the planet. I
love this. And I want to speak to people out there who are listening, because I think you and I, Keri, we're like big freaking visionaries. We like, I want to change the world. Let's go. You know, like I want to change the face of humanity, empower people in such a magnificent way that so many lives, so many generations, so many families are really impacted from the work that we do, from, you know, showing up and sharing our gifts and our genius and helping others to do that as well. And wherever you're at on the journey, for you listening or watching right now, like, you don't have to want to change the world. You could just want a better life for yourself. And you could also want to change the world, whatever you want to do. And I think to dream bigger, to aspire to be the best version of ourselves that we can be, I think that's one of the best things we can do. And also, I wanted to give a shout out to another woman who showed up on the marathon a while back, Kate Shiffy Gray, who reposted something that Scott Oldford reposted, which was about Elon Musk. And some girl was giving Elon Musk crap, right? She was giving Elon Musk crap and saying, you know, you're a billionaire, stop hoarding your money and go help some people. And he's like, you know, you can trash talk me all you want, but what have you done? I've created, I think it was like 50,000 jobs for people over the years of work that he's done, which is impacting like 250,000 people or households and 500,000 families. It's like, what an amazing impact, because he said, I want to create massive impact, and he's rewarded proportionately because of it. But he just did what he wanted to, shared his gifts, and look at the impact that he was able to create because he showed up and just took massive action.
Totally, I agree. Yeah. And I also think it's something you said earlier too. Like you said, it's okay to do it for ourselves, right? And I think it's something that's so important to say, because so many people think that you're not allowed to just want more for yourself. Like, it's not okay that I just want to travel first class. It's not okay that I hear people, this is a big thing I see in the scarcity spiritual world. They're like, oh, But if you took that $100,000, that $1 million that you just spent on your airfare and your holiday, and you gave it to third world country, do you know how many people you could feed? I'm like, do you know how many people they probably are already feeding?
Yeah.
And they get to have that, right? You're like, they worked their fucking butts off for that, right? And they get to do whatever the hell they want to with it. And every single person that I know, and I know lots of millionaires and lots of people with lots of wealth, they all give back in a huge way, and they get to live a really abundant, beautiful life doing whatever the heck they want to do with their money. And that is the joy of it, right?
Yeah, that's what we all want. We all want freedom. We all want the nice stuff, and like we get to, like you said, unpack whatever might be attached to wanting that nice stuff that's keeping us like sabotaging ourselves. Because that's what I think is like total BS. You know, we got to kick out those old belief systems.
Because if you're thinking it, if someone is thinking, oh, like even if they think that about somebody else, they're automatically pushing it away because they're saying, I don't deserve that myself.
Wow.
And they will never create it.
So just celebrating other people when they have those experiences that we want, the wealth, the freedom, the nice family, the impact in their business. I think what a great first step to changing the energetic dynamics of, are we attracting this or are we repelling it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And looking, like on a total, I don't know, random note here. But on that same thing though, like looking at those people and saying like, what are they doing that is allowing them, or how are they showing up, or how are they being that's allowing them to be able to receive this, right? Because ultimately they're no different than you or I. We're all humans.
Yeah.
We all have the same amount of hours. We all have the same capacity. We all have everything the same to be able to do this. It's just that they're showing up in a different way. And instead of like, as I look, it's the same thing with the triggers that we were already talking about, right? Like instead of looking at those triggers and being like angry about the trigger, or like, family, whoever it is that you're looking at, and being like wrapped into it, looping yourself around in the shit of it, let's look at it and go, oh, well, how are they showing up differently? That if I adopted that mentality, that behavior, that action, would I be able to be like that too? And also looking like maybe they have stuff that's like, I don't really like that about them, so don't take that part on, right? But it's like, where are the places that they're showing up so that they can succeed? Because ultimately the magic comes in simply being that now, right? When we adopt the behavior, the mindset, the energetics, the everything of what it is to be at the next level you now, then it magnetically shows up because you're already doing it, right?
Wow. And I think oftentimes I've had a challenge with detaching my personal attachment to the situation, my personal energetic investment into this conversation, or, what I believe about this person, their wealth, their success, etc. Like, how do we get back into that present moment and not get so caught up in the automatic program?
The first thing that comes to mind is totally like an ad plug. It's to spiral. Like, so one of the things I do, and this is like totally true, is one of the energetic modalities I use is this concept called a spiral. And we go in and we release all of these triggers, because ultimately what's happening is it's coming back to these times when we're 7 years old or 1 year old or 3 years old, and something said to us, oh, that thing that over there, like whether it's the way they do love, purpose, whatever, it's like that's looping in our head saying we're not allowed to have it another way. So even if we see it, and this is the part where our mindset, right? Like our mind says, oh, I can totally do that. But our energetics, our spiritual, our emotional body is like, hell no, you're stuck back here at 3 years old, right? So that's like that's the first piece of it, is like saying, okay, well, let's just clear the actual looping behavior. Yeah. Beyond that is literally just going, okay, so what is that piece that is triggering me now? Right? And look at it. Where is that in me? Where is that? I guess the question I ask myself all the time. It will say like, my marriage is changing drastically because our partners, right? They're our biggest kids and partners. They're with you all the damn time, especially when you work in business or you're both working at home, like my husband, right? Always in each other's fields. And so they're your biggest mirror. And it's like, before I now go and get really at him, it's like, well, is that in me too? Right? And where is it in me? Because inevitably, if it's pissing me off because of him, it's in me. That's why I'm seeing it. Yeah. And then, okay, owning it for myself. Okay, so I see that in myself. Now I can shift and change that too. And if it's still something that's in that space, right? Whether it's in the friendship, relationship, whatever, a mentor, whoever it is you're looking at, you can bring the conversation to the table, of course, right? Something that you don't actually have a relationship where we relate together and say, hey, I see this in you. I also see it in me. I'm fully going to own the part of me that is that. And can we have a conversation around how we can make this work for both of us? Like, I don't really like that behavior. Is there a way, right? Or that hurt me or whatever. I feel hurt. It's actually, like I feel hurt because whatever the thing is, right? And so we own that behavior. And it's the same thing when we look at somebody who we don't even know, right? Like somebody who's in a wealth success. Because a lot of people, we're online. A lot of people are watching a lot of successful people getting really triggered.
Yeah.
Being like, how come they can do it? And I've been working my tail off and I can't do it. And right? We've all been there sometime, right? And it's like, okay, well, look at them. To the fact that like follow them back. Where were they when they first started? Because I guarantee they were exactly where you're at. Right? Not one person made it in this online field without going like, oh my God, how come they can't do it? I just want to give up. We're me. We've all been here.
Yeah. And just adopting the strategies, the mindset, the energy, how they see the world. Like what an amazing kind of quest to set out on, an adventure to say, I'm just going to keep staying in wonder till I get to how they're being, who they're being, what they've like broken through, the BS that they've broken through, how I can do the same thing in my life and be able to shift into that power to create what I want, create the wealth, create the freedom, create the peace.
I think that sometimes as well, like the people who trigger us the most are the people who we get to learn from the most.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, even in that, it's like, go and be in their field, go like absorb everything they actually, like if they're really triggering you, go and absorb everything that they have to say. If there's somebody online who's creating success, because they did it for a reason. And the reason that they're triggered is probably because it's what the things you don't want to own or the things that you don't want to do that they're doing and acting and behaving like that are creating the success that you don't have. And that's why it's pissing you off.
I love it. I want to know, Keri, how does the masculine and feminine energy tie into, clearing those limiting beliefs, the looping pattern? Because I know that's what we really want to dive into today as well. What do we need to know about those two dynamics of being a human?
Okay, so the first thing I want to say, because I put this on here, man or woman, right? So the first thing I want to preface this with a foundation on, and a lot of people are like, well, the masculine is the man and the feminine is a woman, right? And it's not true. I mean, it is true because I'm a woman and I have feminine properties. You're a man, you have masculine properties. But we both have both. Yes. Right? So we both have the divine masculine, we both have the divine feminine. And realistically, and this is what, we were talking about before, like before we got on this call when we were talking, and the reason I'm so passionate about this is because of a leadership perspective. I see a lot of women in leadership roles, and I'm explaining this to explain the whole thing, but I see a lot of women in leadership roles now, whether it's in business, in CEOs, however they're leading, right? Even in families, right? We come back down to like, as a mother in a family, leading the home, right? We're doing it from a masculine perspective because leaders have traditionally been men. Leaders of the world, the people who are making the money, the people who are making the decisions have traditionally in the past been men. And so we have learned leadership through this masculine thing, way of doing things. But even the men, right, if we look at this, men are doing it from the masculine. In all of this, the feminine aspect of life, of our bodies, of the environment that we live in, has been like left to the side. It's like she doesn't even exist in the world. It's poor woman. It's poor feminine, right? And so we get to look at within whether we're a masculine or whether we're a man or a woman, we both have feminine and masculine traits. And what I desire to see so deeply in the world is to see both men and women to wake up their inner feminine. And it's coming in the world. Like you talk about this for sure. Like the new earth showing up, the feminine is rising. And so why is it important is because people are getting sick and burning out. And the reason they're getting sick and burning out is because they can only push so hard, right? The masculine is the action. The masculine is the drive. The masculine is the force that's going to move it forward, right? The feminine is the flow. It's the emotions, yada, yada. So even as men growing up, men were mostly taught, don't be emotional. You're a big girl. You're a sissy, right? And so that literally they're like, the feminine is not allowed in their worlds, right? And then women are like, well, be strong. We're now equal. Da, 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 da. So the feminine's not allowed in that either. And so we have these two beings, the women and the men, both acting from this masculine space that's quite wounded.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and this is the way that I look at it as well, from like, if we were to balance the masculine and feminine containers, an easy way to say this. With the masculine energy that we have, the masculine is the energy that holds, right? It's like this beautiful holding energy. For the feminine, because the feminine is this wild emotional, it's like, most men would say us women are a little bit wild and crazy and emotional, right? And we can lose our bits. We cry at the Kleenex commercials, whatever, right? Yep. And so, but we couldn't really do it, like we don't do it in a healthy way without being held by the masculine, right? We do it losing our crap when we're not. And so when we look at it like this, it's like the masculine, if you look at a river, the feminine is the water that flows, but without the masculine container, the masculine, the sides of the river bank, the rocks that hold the river, we wouldn't have the feminine, right? So what we're looking at when we want to look at balancing the masculine and the feminine within is looking at, well, how can my masculine be whole and kind to me and hold the feminine aspect of me that is the emotional piece of me, which is the river, which is the flow, right? And when we look at magic, right, we look at magic as the feminine, ultimately, right? Like magic comes from being in this space of the void, of the complete unknown, the complete surrender, right? Which is very feminine. But if it's not held in a safe way by the masculine, we won't ever drop into that fully, right? Yeah. And so, and also, we're only doing this push. And so this is what's leading to the burnout, right? We're only doing the push if we're only in the masculine. And it will only get us, and when we talk about wealth creation or wealth uprising, right? It's only going to get us to a certain point because there are only so many hours a day. Right. So at some point, it's like, I can't actually put more on my plate. So how am I going to actually increase the wealth? And a lot of people will hit a plateau there because they're like, I actually don't want to take more work on. So, well, if it's $250,000 a year or $1 million a year, wherever they're at, $100,000 a year, they just stop because they're like, I don't know how to get past this. But the way to get past it, ultimately, obviously, if we look for masculine systems and structures, right, to be able to up level, which you can work with an amazing Scott Wolford is be a great person, actually. Speaking of that name, right? I mean, put a plug there for him. He's amazing at that. Yes. But then we allow the magic, right? You were even talking about, I was listening right at the end of your thing, your piece just before this, that trust and surrender, right? And so that's the feminine. And when we allow that flow to come through and we allow that surrender, I think you were saying, like, I was taught to, I was asked by God to just drop all my clients and walk through Vegas with me, right? Like, that's the feminine, right? Yes. But if the feminine wasn't being held by, you have a support team around you that you've got these structures in place. I'm going to have my interviews done. I'm going to have this thing, right? So we can't just sit and meditate and hope a bag of money is going to fall on our head. And we can't just keep acting and driving, because if we do that 20 hours a day, they're still only going to, because that's what ends up happening. 20 hours a day we're working. We end up crashing out, sick as a dog. And it doesn't, like, you still won't get where you want to go. And we go backwards when we hit that. Yeah. And so it's this really beautiful balance of both the masculine and feminine. And it's important to know that it's within the male and the female, right? Like, and what I'm seeing is a lot of men at this point too, it's like they realize I can't do more. Right. And men are being demanded a lot right now. And I look at it and I feel like the men who go, and whether it's entrepreneurial or, if we have people who are watching that are in a job, right? And they have to go and they're working their tails off to provide for the family. And then they come home and then the wife is like, oh my God, I'm so tired from all the, right? And everybody's double upping, right? Like, the moms are now having to do work because of the economy and the way that we all want to live in this abundant world. But like, both people are now working and working and working, and like, it's going to break somewhere. And that's where we get to allow for this feminine magic flow. But if we don't actually tap into that energy space, and we don't learn that, and we don't learn that how to be healthfully in each and call upon each energy, then we won't.
Yeah, because I would say most people are in their masculine, if they're, especially like entrepreneurs and stuff, like, we're doing a lot. We're wanting, we're driving, we're visionaries, we're hungry. And it can be really frustrating for a lot of people when you don't see the results from all the effort. Like you're like, hey, I've been in this for a month. I've been in this for 3 months. I've been in this for 6 months, 3 years. And where are my results? Where is the flow? Where is the freedom? I feel like I'm working harder than ever. Like, what is going on? What am I missing? And so I think those people would really want to know, Keri, how do they get back into balance with that feminine? How do they really invite that magic back into their lives, especially in like a practical, like what can they do way?
The first thing starts with making time for it, because that's where most people go wrong, right? Like most people I know do not make time for it, and they say, I don't have time for any of the things I will list out, right? They're like, I don't have time for it. I'm like, well, actually, you don't have time not to. And whatever you're doing from the masculine, all those action steps that you take, like think about how many times, and I know I've done this, like how many times have you sat in front of the computer and like you're in the worst mood, nothing is working, you want to throw the computer out the door, and then you keep going, right? And you're like, I want to pull my hair out and I keep going. Like that's the moment in time that you go, wait, walk away,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And we have this moment of reflection because it doesn't actually work to keep driving in that masculine place without actually going, what if I just take a break, right?
Yeah.
So, but most people don't actually give themselves times throughout the day at any given point in time to go for that walk around Vegas, right? To do any of the things. But on a daily basis, like there's things like meditation. And now a lot of people, and I know especially like my husband, and I know other men, and women, it's not even whatever, but it's like a lot of people say, I can't sit and meditate for 20 minutes. You don't have to. 1 minute. Right?
Just try.
Start something. Go get like, just go online and look for a meditation. That's a 5-minute meditation. You will find one on YouTube, guaranteed, that will lead you into something, right? Go for a walk. Walking is a walking meditation. Just turn off everything and just turn off the devices and walk outside and sit in nature for 15 minutes. My husband's a bike rider. For him, getting on his bike is meditation, right? Like it doesn't mean, for me doing the dishes when everybody's gone and not bothering me, it's actually really meditative, right?
Yeah.
It's this monotonous thing. And I'm like, how can I clear my mind right now? Right.
Totally.
So we can look in those places in time that it's like, this is actually a meditation, right? We can put these into our day, but also it's like, it's good, sit and meditate, or come back to breath. Like this is the thing that I always say, just breathe. Your airflow. And like when we breathe, like this thing, like I think it's important to think about this. Like we have this natural flow. So your breath, like bringing it up your spine from your base, from your pelvic bowl, bringing it up your spine, all the way up your crown, and then bringing it back down around. So as we inhale, we bring it up our spine exactly. And then we bring it down. And like we have this circle, and that's the natural circle. That's our natural flow. And when we go back into that, it's like, and it doesn't have to take but a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, however long you want to give it, right? And obviously the more that we do it, the longer that we do it. Yeah. Right? We can go outside and step and ground on the earth. Journaling is an amazing thing. And so there's a lot of expression, dance, like that's the flow. However, like in a lot of people, when it comes to movement, get stuck in their bodies, right? And it's like you go to the gym, and I go to the gym too, right? And it's like this.
It's just like so mechanical. There's no flow. There's no freedom. It's all rigid, tight, like and intense, like mechanics.
Right. And so when we look at the flow and we look at the physical aspect of releasing things out of our body, right? Because energy or emotion is energy in motion. It is stored in our body. It is stored like when I went to Sydney, my original degree, my diploma when I went there was in body work, natural integrated body therapies, nutrition, all these things. But I have worked with bodies for a long time. Yeah. And when we release the tension out of our body, we release the emotion, right? So I used to work with fascial stuff, myofascial work. And it's all held in there. So when we then just sit here and we do this one thing, and we do this one thing, and we sit on the same planes that we do, because we do, then everything gets stored in our physical body. So when we start to like even just move, like get up from your desk and like turn on the music and just allow your body to move. Yeah. I do ecstatic dance, which is phenomenal, but there's all sorts of like 5 rhythms, there's ecstatic dance, there's Kundalini dance. There's all sorts of ways that you can dance. You just put on the music and forget that anyone else exists in the world and let yourself go. Because when we actually, and it's like, I always think I kind of like go into like those places that are like stagnant. You're like,
oh yeah,
how can I move? And you look like maybe you look like a moron. It doesn't matter, right? You can just be by yourself. But to like move and stretch those places that are like, and you'll feel like, oh my God, there's tension there. Well, that's an emotion. That's a blockage. That's an energetic block that is physically forms in your body. And the more that we can open ourselves to release that stuff, the more that we're not holding onto it physically. And again, it's just another way of stepping into that feminine flow. And both, I mean, all of it's good. Like I said, I go to the gym, I lift weights, whatever, but I also dance, and it's just in flexibility. And right? Does that make sense? Is that
absolutely. I love it. And what comes to my mind as well is like when we're doing that, one thing that I've done some flow movements and things like that. And like whatever is my specific challenge in life, I can also affirm things, invite things in, set intentions. Like I would attempt to combine those with manifestation or even deeper healing. Like for me, like my lower back has given me issues for whatever reason. And so when I'm in that movement, I think it's for me, feeling supported and feeling like I'm supporting too much and trying to control too much in my world. So I could affirm while I'm dancing and just say, I am so supported, and just like really call in even more of that energy. I think that's something I want to take on to amplify that effect.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like allowing that, and it's funny because, this is what just came to me, but another feminine thing, it's through self-pleasure, orgasm, right? Yeah. And it's amazing like how many people who get stuck and don't allow themselves into that space, or who will hold on to that physical pain because they're afraid of the freedom that will, like, why do we, as a massage therapist, I used to ask the question, what's the benefit? Yeah. Why am I what am I receiving by holding on to this pain, which often can be a safety thing, right? Like it actually, like whatever the attachment to it, if I'm afraid that I'm not going to be supported and I'm not going to surrender, then that pain won't go.
Wow.
Right? And like, this is how chronic pain shows up, because the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic aspect hasn't been cleared. And we're not looking at that piece to the physical pain. My husband's a therapist too still, and he does magic. But there's some people, it's like chronically.
Yep.
Well, have you looked at the energetic, emotional piece of it? And so when you combine that, like you just said, it's like, I am fully supported. And then even beyond that, if you were to, well, what support systems do I need in place? Like if you really render into that, right? Yeah.
Like practical, because it's great to affirm things. And I think we're in the generation of personal development junkies, and I'm a self-proclaimed junkie. And how do I actually go take action on these affirmations? How am I applying them? When I say, I'm surrendering and I'm letting go, I'm giving up control and saying the universe, God, source, creator has my back. How do I actually do that? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? And so I think that's really important to match the affirmation with action in integrity, so that we get the result, we get the outcome.
Absolutely. So like for you, it's like support could be, you've brought on a business partner, right? Or like, I don't know, right? Yeah. So like, how does it literally physically look to feel supported? Right. And when we start asking ourselves these questions, you'd be surprised, because support is going to look different to every person.
Totally.
So how do I need to be supported will be different to how you need to be supported. Right. So we just get to ask ourselves that question. So like, what would it look like for me right now to be physically supported?
Wow.
Okay. Then what piece of it? Because maybe some of it, it's like, okay, well, I'd love to have, I'm on my way to getting, I used to have a chef who's freaking amazing. She would come every week. I'm back on my way to getting, like I said, we've had to recover costs, but I'm coming back to. Right. But it's like a chef, a personal trainer, a VA, a social media person, a bit like all these things would all feel, for a lot of people, personal trainer, massage therapist, facials, like all of that stuff. But what's the piece that I can do right now? Right. Like if I can't do all of it right now on a financial level, what's the one thing I can do right now to feel supported? or whatever the thing is that's showing up for you.
Yeah, and even financial might be an aspect, but a lot of people might be busy. Maybe you have the finances, but you're just like, man, I'm just so jam packed with my schedule. Well, what can you do right now? Can you take 5 minutes? Can you take 10 minutes? Can you take an hour? And go to a park, whatever it might be. Like for me, it's just really when I'm feeling stuck and blocked, I'm just like, man, I got to get up. I got to go somewhere. I got to get some fresh air, get out of this space, because just being in an environment, being focused on something for too long, or whatever comes up, like, hey, I get to be aware, I get to be sensitive. I think that's another word that a lot of people don't want to take on, because we've made it bad, especially men, to be sensitive. And it's like, no, be sensitive to your intuition, be sensitive to your body, to the signals, to the signs, the intuition that comes to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I know for me personally, I love teaching to my clients, because the signs are everywhere. Yeah. And I'm always like, it's an ingraining process, right? Like to actually be so aware. And like you said it before too, like obviously you have this awareness, but it's something, and I say this like to people who are just on this road, like just starting on the waking up, like having and paying attention to the signs and spirituality, and like the fact that we are in conversation with and in co-creation with God, divine, the universe, whatever you want to call it, all the time. Yeah. That it's like, just start, like the signs will always, you'll start to know them for yourself. Like, so for me, one of my signs is feathers. I love that. So whenever I see feathers in random places, it's like, oh, I know I'm on the right path. Right. And so it's like, you'll start to, or you can start to look for, like, start to ask for, like, what is like show me a sign today. It needs to be bloody big, like a freaking bus driving by, not hitting me. Right. I don't need to get hurt for it. Be clear on things. Right. But like sometimes what it is, like you'll be driving in the street and the answer is like right on literally on the advertisement on the back of the bus. I've literally had that. Right. It's like, I'm looking for this answer. And you're like, oh yes, it's my quote on the bus. Thank you so much, universe. Right. And it can just be starting to ask for it. It can be like, I want more abundance in my life. And so it can be like, show me, especially when we start to look at this feminine flow, like that I'm in this conversation, show me a sign. And it can be like picking that penny up off the ground. Thank you, universe. It doesn't have to be these huge, like people start to ask when we start this manifestation process and start this flow-based process and start to really trust in and surrender into the divine. People all of a sudden are like, they go from, I've never done this before, I don't really trust the process, to like, I'm going to make $1 million. And I'm like, you don't believe that you will, because you don't actually trust that. Not that they couldn't. Right. But we have to bridge that trust gap, I guess, right? Yeah. And so start looking for, like, there's a penny. Now I'm getting $100. Now I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, I don't even know where it showed up. But the client, like, literally this just happened. This client, we don't even know how we found each other. Neither of us have any idea how we ended up in each other's worlds. Right? But literally she's like, I'm here. So, I mean, it'll be over $2,000 investment. Like, thank you, universe. Right? Thank you for both delivering and for both of us to deliver us to each other. Right. And so like the signs just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. But it can start with these tiny little, like you just said, these tiny little moments. And we just start looking for these little signs that I'm on the right path.
And also one thing I want to speak for the audience, for someone who's listening right now, like my invitation for you to really supercharge this process, like what Keri just shared was so freaking powerful. Celebrate that. Celebrate Keri being the conduit, being the reminder that you can attract $2,000 clients, $5,000, $10,000, whatever level you're at, $100 clients, whatever level you're at, it's perfect. But remember that you can attract people and they come from off your radar. You have no idea where they came from. Doesn't matter. You don't need to know. And celebrate that and say, I want that. I want that. So Keri, congratulations. I so appreciate that you're here as the reminder that that's possible. I want that. I'm accepting that. I'm open. Show me, universe, God, source, creator, how to create that even more in my own life. And simply just declaring that affirmation, you're already taking steps towards that magic.
And it really does come into that belief. Like you really have to believe that it's true. Which is why it's like start small. Like because you might not believe that clear out of nowhere, someone's going to land in your lap and give you a couple grand. Or, and I've had people get, or even tax rebates, right? It's like, it shows up in the craziest places, right? Always does. And like when you truly and this is the other thing, like about, I would say, up-leveling wealth and this feminine surrender process, right? Because when we look at people who have created success, generally speaking, and this is what I was saying, it's like they do it by being the person. We said this before, right? If you're looking at a mentor, if you're looking at somebody who's being successful, they do it by being the person. So they didn't wait until they had an extra $100,000 in the bank account to go do the things. They didn't wait until they had an extra $2,000 to go pay for a mentor. No. They said yes. And they incrementally increase the amount of money they're willing to spend on themselves, their dreams, because by doing that, they're actually living their freaking dreams, right? Oh, wait, I want a massage a week. So what if I start by getting one a month?
Yep.
I don't have the money. Just do it.
Yes.
Right? I don't have it, but I'm going to do it. And then the money will show up.
Boom.
But the trust and the faith, this is where you were talking about before too, right? The trust, the faith, and the belief that it will happen. Yeah. Right? You have got to believe that it will happen. And then every single time you put that faith piece out and you put that next level thing out, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I did it. And the money showed up. Cool. I'm willing to take a little bit of a bigger risk and trust that the money will show up.
Yep.
Right. And so even if you're making $250,000 a year, right, the next stretch, it's like, well, okay, well, I'm going to hire on somebody else and I'm going to hire on my social media manager or whatever. And that I don't have the money for that every month, but the fact would be that they're going to make the money for you.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole point of it, right?
Yep.
You're going to grow your business. That's the point of taking it on.
Yeah.
And so consequently, it's like these little incremental upgrades that allow ourselves to show up and be the person by taking those small actions, by trusting and having faith. And the more that you do it, and the more that even in these little places, right, it shows up, then when you start to strive for the bigger places and we really grow our wealth, you already trust it. You already believe it. So of course it's going to work. Like I've never been on the street yet. I've never not eaten yet, and I've taken risks. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So okay, well I'll trust this one too. Okay, why not? Because like you say, God told me so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why would God tell me if I wasn't supposed to do it? Whether it's good or bad.
Exactly.
Whether it works out or not. We're gonna have to listen to this somehow.
I think the work that's important for a lot of people is who's the person I get to become, right? Like having a clear idea of who do I want to become? What's the life that I want to live? Start with that end, that clarity in mind, and then say, okay, what do I get to do to be able to be that person? If I want a massage a week, then I get to, at least start. Let's go get one massage. Let's start with that. Like go get one. And then that will increase the belief. Go do the actions, whatever level you're able to start at. If you're crawling, then crawl, be okay with that. Be willing to start there. If you want to be, let's say a top 10 podcaster, you got to be okay with starting with some crappy episodes in the beginning so that you can get started. But if you don't get started, if you don't like start crawling and, be willing to bump your head against the wall, then you'll never get there. But you have to first start. Yeah.
Totally. I wrote a post about it last week, that exact thing, like about being an author, because people often will look at my writings. I write a lot.
Yeah.
And people will often and I've had all these sessions with clients recently. They're like, but Keri, how do you do this? And and it takes me hours. And I'm like, you don't think it doesn't take me hours when I first started? And you don't think I had some pretty shitty freaking, articles that went out? Of course I did. I mean, when I first started, 1,000 words was like nails on a chalkboard and really hard. Now I'm like, 1,000 words? Are you kidding? I just wrote it in 30 minutes and I didn't realize.
Banging it out.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's like, you said it, right? You just have to, like, you were not this amazing when you first started, were you?
No way. No way.
It comes with practice.
Yes. Yeah. And that's super important. I want to get into this quantum realm of like possibility and wonder and how that plays an important part of magic and manifesting in your world, Keri. What do we need to know about like really opening up to possibility?
In this physical world, we're limited. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We're limited to these fingers, these toes, these bodies, these experiences of couch, whatever. But the reality is, it's all energy, right? It's all scientifically, we're all just cells. This is energy. We're all energy, and it's how dense the energy is and how high vibrational the energy is to whether we see it or not. Yep. Right? And so in the quantum realms, like it's the unseen and yet it's so seen because we create it there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, to put it really clearly, like people will talk about visualization, right? If we can remove the unconscious filter, the filter that goes between the conscious and the unconscious mind, right? And we put things into the visualization process out into the quantum realms, then trust, like I have this thing, like we all have, I don't know. I have leaned more and more into my spiritual team.
Amen.
That there's angels, spirits, dragons. I got a whole pack of them. Yes. Right. And I think of them out in the quantums, like doing the work for me. Yeah. I'm like, and I just surrender it out to God into the quantum realms and be like, okay, I don't know how it's going to show up, but I have this vision and you wouldn't have delivered it to me because anything that's delivered to us, I think you even said this, through universe, through God, it is for you.
Yep.
It's not given to anyone else. It's given to you because you're supposed to take this to the world. Wow. Right. And if God wanted you to have it, or universe wanted you to have it, source, whatever, then it will, if you trust in it, it will become manifest. And if you expect, like if we were talking about support, right? Support in this realm, but also in the other realms. Because if my angels are working and your angels are working, and I say, hey, can you go talk to Chris's angels and make this all work for me? Like, let's make this work. I don't know how, but we'll get together. They'll figure it out. Right. And surrender. It sounds like, it sounds loopy sometimes when I even talk about it, but like, it just does. And when we stop to think that I am alone, I'm not alone. I have this entire other reality that's always working for me. And so often, like we have, like, if we look at the dogma of this, right? God, like, and people will say this, but it hasn't worked before. God hasn't given it to me before. The universe has screwed me over before. I said yes to things before. How much of that, first of all, was ego, not actually spirit, right? Like we have to learn to differentiate what is ego that's telling us to go do things, right? And what is spirit that's telling us to go do things. So first of all, like that's a big one, right? And second of all, did you learn a lesson from it? Because if you did, which of course, if you probably fell on your butt because you did, because you thought God told you to, you probably learned some lesson from it. Otherwise, go back and look at it and learn the lesson, right? Then that in and of itself is beautiful, right? And so even like, if we start to really, like, it is truly the attitude of gratitude. And I'll say this like this. My husband actually fell off his bike a few months ago, and he was coming down. We live in Colorado, and he was coming down one of the mountains on a ski runs, and he was alone actually. And there's a bike patrol that came in and got him, and he had a nasty concussion, broke his wrist, sprained his other wrist, and like was grazed everywhere. I don't know how he got home. Honestly, there was angels looking after him because he ended up, like, somehow the stupid medical center let him drive home an hour and 15 minutes. And I never knew about it. Right. So when I saw him, he was a mangled mess. And I was like, holy moly. And after the initial shock, watching this man who's like this stoic human being in my life, I fell into deep gratitude. Now, most people would look at that mess, first of all, financially on all levels for us, that's messy, right? On a physical level, I now have to look after him. I have my kids. Like there's a lot of ramifications from something like that, right? And I fell into deep gratitude, and so did he. And when we can come from that place, right? And we can look at all of the mistakes and all of the beautiful things in life from a grateful place, but especially the shit that happens, it's like, there's a lesson in this. So do you want to, again, he had to surrender in. There was a lot of surrendering that had to happen in that to learn the lessons and to go through it, but everything for a reason, right? So when we connect in and we truly become, and it's a learning, like it's like these little baby steps, but when we truly become channels and open ourselves to divine co-creation, you will always be given what you can do. And you will never be giving anything you can't handle. And all of the lessons that come from that, whether good or bad, right? And I'm going to say that in quotes because they're always good, right? And so much has come from it. And like the whole time I was like, I'm totally grateful. I mean, it sucks, but I'm also grateful.
Yeah, there's some kind
And
of higher purpose for all this, to remember, to get present to the value of life, and also how much you two support each other and are there for each other, and I think there's so much to just really allow us to pause for and say, all right, now that life kind of forced us to pause and take a look and slow down a little bit, what do we want to pay attention to? What do we want to celebrate? What's important to us?
Right. And I think like, I mean, and it's to come back to the question you asked about the quantums, like, but that's what it is, right? When we truly trust in and believe in this higher power, right? And we throw our things into the quantum realm, into this quantum soup that we don't understand, because really, like, it's so far beyond the human mind.
Yep.
Realistically, right? It is so far behind, even though there's all sorts of science. Like, you can go look in Joe Dispenza. He's got all sorts of science that will tell you all about this. But like, it's so far beyond what we can physically comprehend.
Yeah.
Right? It comes back down to the belief and the trust and the faith that it's like, there is something bigger than me, a lot of stuff bigger than me, that is helping me when I trust and have faith and belief, that's helping me co-create my dreams and desires. And I expect, right, that with my positive affirmation, as you said, that this is all going to be my reality, because it is now, because I'm choosing it and I'm asking that it shows up for me, then that's what gets to happen. And like in that same way, when we play in the quantum realms for clearing stuff, right? So like part of the work that I do is to go in and energetically, I feel like I have it here. I feel like I have this crystal. They're called Antaras. They're like multidimensional crystals. I love them.
Wow.
But this reminds me of like a surgical, I can see, oh, here we go.
Yep.
Right? I feel like I surgically go in and remove the stuff that is no longer serving you on an energetic, mental, emotional, spiritual level in wherever it is right now.
Yep.
And it disappears. It literally goes away, and not just from our physical or mental body, but from the whole field. Right? And then we open up this gateway and this channel for more clarity. And like the things, the more that we clear that field, and the more time, and like, this is why I say, like, people who don't make time for this, it's like, to me, it's stupid. It's like, you're giving yourself more work, right?
Yep.
Because honestly, if you could let magic happen for you, it would happen faster. Right?
Yeah.
And more amazing things show up, and you don't have to do more.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But we have to keep that energetic, that snow globe clear, so that all the goodness, and we can hear divine, not ego, divine, connecting through us.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. I love the example of using that crystal. And, I think our energy, our mind, our body, spirituality is so powerful. We can just like set intentions with these different like tools and spiritual conduits, and I thought I had some crystals around here. But just like use one and use it to like just close your eyes and open up your mind and open up that imagination. And like, I was thinking about cutting cords to negative things. Like even you can imagine different effects using a crystal, or I thought of like a spiritual scalpel, so to speak, with your crystal, and cutting out those negative places in our life. Like, show me, you can even ask, like, show me where this is residing in my field or in my body. Help me release it. Help me cut it out. And it doesn't matter what the answer is. It could be in your knee, could be in your toe, could be in your eye. It doesn't matter. Like, just trust that is there, and then go through the movement with the sincerity, with the love, with the presence, with the intention of that being released. And I think that's freaking magic too. Like really going beyond whatever is the physical in the physical realm, and tapping into our intuition and our energetic powers to be able to shift our reality, to create, to release, to be able to heal ourselves too.
Absolutely.
So powerful. I love it. Keri, this is gold. I want to wrap the conversation up with just a final send off about like Wealth Alchemy, and what you want our audience to know about working with you, what type of clients that you take on, and what kind of results that they get. Just dive into a conversation around that, what you want our audience to get to know more about you for.
Look, I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit here and promise and guarantee things for clients. It's like, we have layers upon layers upon layers of things.
Sure.
What I do know to be true is that when people come into my field and I think this is also something to note about myself and other people, right? When we start to work in this realm and when we start to truly want to level up our wealth, we are all energetic conduits, right? We are all a spark of the divine. And in that, we came here for a soul's purpose. And the more that we stand in our soul's purpose, the more magic happens. Now, I actually think that's actually one of the most important pieces to people, because most people are not standing in their purpose. Most people, it's like right on the side and they're not picking it up, right? And so that actually happens as the magic. Like the second that you say yes to your magic, then like clients show up out of nowhere. I had one woman the other day, we did a clearing session and I helped her write a post. I said to her, like, be a little bit more vulnerable and write this post. And she said to me, Keri, I put that post up, and she's already making multiple six figures. And she said, I put that post up and I can't keep up with the phone calls. Like my workload is so big from that one post. And it was like 3 paragraphs. This is not like hard. I didn't even help her write the post. I just told her, like, go write a more vulnerable post about your story. Literally. And then we worked on all of the energetics around why she wouldn't and all these things. And we were talking about her self-expression and clearing out of the field, right? Her ability and her fear of the vulnerability and her fears around that stuff. And her, like, it literally, that's what happens. Like, it's not like she puts posts up other days. Right. And it's like, it's literally in shifting the energy in that magic will happen. Right. And so when we come into this place, this is what I was saying about like the being who we are. Right. So I help my clients with that, to really pick up their magic divine purpose. Right. And for me, I know for me, my channel, my conduit is literally like to help magic come from the quantums down to earth. Because the other thing to know about it is, if we leave it up in the quantums, if we leave our dreams and our visions there, they stay dreams. We don't actually manifest it. And there is this piece, like, we have to be pillars that says, I'm bringing this through and I'm bringing this down to earth. And my magic on this planet is to help you take things, shift them on the quantum realms, and help bring them down to this planet to make manifest. I'm a Taurian. I'm an earthy person.
I love it. I love it.
I love grounding things in. And if it doesn't become practical and it's not grounded, I'm like, whatever. So I'm like, I love to play up there. But like, if it doesn't come down, what's the point? Right? And so that's why magic happens for my clients, because there's a lot of people in the spiritual world who are like, I just want to play up here all day long, which I love. But what's the point if it actually doesn't make manifest into our life?
Amen. So Keri, this is awesome. I know our audience wants to stay connected with you. There's people out there who their hearts are feeling called to this conversation, to be their own divine conduit and their own divine channel of their gifts. How do they connect with you? How do they take those next steps with you?
So they can email me, Keri@KeriNorley.com, or I am definitely on Facebook with my messenger. So you can check me out there. I think you have all the links for show notes, but Facebook, Keri /Keri Norley 1.
Beautiful. And that's KeriNorley, the number 1. And Keri, you are such a divine blessing for this world. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your love. And this is a blast. I'm looking forward to more. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I so appreciate you. I so appreciate the work that you're doing in the world and helping people to get the messages out there. And helping people to be their most amazing selves.
Amen. GPS, let's go. Keri, have the best day ever, and we'll see you soon, okay?
You too. See ya. Thank you. Bye.